Good evening. We're going to spend a little bit of time breaking down maybe some multiple chapters, and the reason I'm going to do it from this approach is trying to break down the chapters in explicit detail via video sometimes makes it a little bit difficult because of the process of putting so much knowledge into a short period of time, and in that process may leave some things in transition. Since we have an opportunity to have these calls set up not only individually, which again, still waiting for several of you to set the time up with me each week, but also on Mondays, we have an opportunity for you to read through the material and come in and ask questions. So the combination of those conversations, hopefully these videos will kind of get you sparked and started in the right direction. Well, let's talk a little bit about the chapters, covering a little bit last week and also this week. Chapter 3 is really breaking into just terminology, things that we will hear as we're working through the process of research. Understanding the concept or the thought process that goes in, the construct or the design that you're putting together. Understanding variables. What are variables? Showed a little silly video last week that you guys watched that gave you an opportunity from a simplistic point, but what do variables set up for you? Well, let's kind of combine chapter 4 with a little bit of chapter 3 and understand that process. You've heard me mention that the research question has to go within the organizational design, and we're not just doing open research to lead to future research, we're trying to refine and resolve an issue. Albeit hopefully a smaller one to keep from getting scope creep, but still, the research question itself is based upon an organizational need and a true problem that you want to resolve. It helps you narrow down and focus on what the true research is, the course of the research that you're going to choose. In other words, are we doing qualitative? Are we doing quantitative? Or are we doing mixed methodology, which is basically combining both? And what you will see is that that is a series. Generally, you will do some qualitative, maybe just as an example, some interviews. Evidence based upon that will help refine, for example, a quantitative research, which would be surveys, and you launch the surveys. What makes true research in terms of size? That's the other question. Rule of thumb is 25 individuals to make it true quantitative. That's why a lot of times you'll be accessing second tier information, which is, in other words, research has been done already or the cumulative statistics are there. Okay, you are just going to read that information yourself. Now, without a solid research question, not only do we not have the course of action, but we have a model based upon those variables. What is the dependent variable? What is the independent variable? What is the control that keeps that in process? Is a criterion variable. In other words, do we have a model placed together? Without having a solid research problem, a very refined research question, we can't choose the course of the type of research, design the model, and get the variables. And why do we do this? There's no way to measure the data. And again, we have to have a way to measure the data to be able to evaluate the results, find a resolution, hopefully, to the issue, and something that's tangible your company can use. The other part is that the variables help set up the results and the information for the data. So it also aligns the questions you're going to ask. And even in an interview, there's a couple of types of approach, an open or closed-ended questions. Are we being very specific? Are we consistent in the questions we ask? In other words, don't walk into an interview unprepared. We want to ask each individual that we would interview the exact same questions. Why? Because we're looking for consistency or that area of inconsistency that will help resolve the issue, or lead us to questions we can ask specifically in a survey that may extract more information, so we have the second round of research, which would be more interviews, observation, that type of thing. So We also need to understand some things in terminology, hypothesis versus theory, and understanding that hypothesis is a formulated approach to the issue where the theory has a system of resolution and has been tested a few times, at least. Part of the process of being a good researcher is sound reasoning and being able to make solid deductions or inductions depending upon where you're at in the process, and truly helps keep you focused. So easy again to see the resolution and lose sight of the information from the research. So we want to use not only solid knowledge but take the time to let the research provide the answers that you're looking for and not just to jump forward on that. We want to try and set the tone very early on our research approach. That's part of setting up as I went through the research process and the project itself. That was part of the instrument that you will be using, the questions that you'll be asking, the problem that you'll be researching. And I suggest that you choose one that has value to you. Not only does it meet the organizational need, but gives you passion to do the research, and also something that you have access to information. There are a lot of issues that could be resolved, but given the amount of time, are you able to gather the data that you need? They talk a bit in chapters 3, 4, 5, and 6, and they get into types of research, and they get into things such as data mining and the locations that you'll find this information. It's your choice where you use it's your choice what process you'll use. But where you gather the information makes the process easier or harder. And again, remembering the statistics are skewed based upon what you add or delete. You may have a ton of information, but there's just some that you choose not to use. That can skew the results. So we keep those variables defined, look at the variation, and learn from that. And later in the chapters, I believe in chapter 6, we talk a little bit about experimentation and how that can have some benefit, though do we have time for that particular process in your research? And my answer would probably be no. And one of the things that as we look through this and we're thinking about setting up research proposals in our model is that if you can see this, a lot of times what you're looking for, you may have, if you remember a little bit of statistics, this would be A and this would be B and this would be C. Right here is hopefully where all of your material from your research takes you to the union of A, B, and C, and therefore finds a resolution in the process. And that also, as you get further into research, and if you find that you have seen tangible results, have the ability to use that, either from an external or internal consulting standpoint, to be successful with your organization as your own independent research. Now, there are some good models along the way in each of the chapters that give you a clear breakdown and visual view of not only how to set up your research, how to set up your research question, how to set up your research proposal. They take you clearly in a funnel approach, which is ultimately what we're trying to do, is take something that may be broad, clearly define that, and each level of research should be able to spit out at the bottom of the funnel an answer and how we move forward. And ultimately, it may be that we need more research. Maybe that we didn't have the funding with the given solution to be able to utilize what we've gained. It may be that we can't resolve the issue given the research that we've done and the answers that we've learned. So that's truly up to us and our design. One last thing that I will talk about before I close out this video. There's some books that I may refer to along the way, and I'm going to show you a few of them. And again, just so you understand that there's more than just a book, and it's a very good book. Creswell and Clark. Creswell does a lot of research into what's called mixed methodology, and one of the videos I'll talk a little bit about that and how that applies. But again, mixed method research, you might hear me refer to that. It's by Creswell and Clark. When you get ready to promote or discuss your issue and you want to make change, you'll see this one, and this is written by the primary author of Whirling, Integrated Strategic Change. And we talked about types of change, process change, and force change. That's part of the approach that you can take. Again, if we're looking for types, and again, there's two types, qualitative and quantitative, qualitative being individual, and there's several things you can do observational, from just directive observation. You can do interviews, you can utilize experimentation, which we talked about just a minute ago, may be difficult, but if we're doing qualitative, the gentleman here named Maxwell does a very good job, qualitative research design. I mentioned action research, and one of the things about action research is not only is it very aggressive, but it also applies the concept of team and how you can attack and the ways that you can not only set up your models, but also understand how to align the measurements of your models, whether that's qualitative or quantitative, and some of the technology is available. Participative action research. Now this is for education. It's by Alana James, but it's a very good book. Appreciative inquiry is talking about, again, how we do research for change and applying your organization's strengths and the process that you would use. And again, by Jan Reed, a very good book if you're looking for that. You might hear me talk about writing style. And when you're doing your posts, whether that is for your discussion board, for your individual projects each week, or for this particular project for this course and the next, I talk about Strunk and White, and it's called the Elements of Style. It's been around for a long time, and it basically shows you how to and discusses compressing your writing. In other words, being able to say something in 2 sentences that before may have taken you 2 paragraphs. In other words, getting it compressed. Process Consultation Revisited, again by Mr. Schein, Edgar Schein, a very good book in terms of how to apply process change and get buy-in from your organization. There are several out here that I may refer to as well: Behavioral Foundation for Research, Appreciative Sharing of Knowledge, Qualitative Interviewing, Craft Research for Quantitative Design. If you hear those and you'd like to know more about some reading that's available, I'll be more than glad. If I was in the classroom, I would bring these books in and kind of let you thumb through them. But again, from a long distance perspective, we don't have that opportunity. This week, again, as I close, I encourage you to read the chapters that are due for the week. Bring in your research problems, the questions. As a group, let's talk about them and find, is it too broad? How can we refine that? Does it meet the business need? And ask your questions about the chapter reading so that it gets more of a group concept, even from a distance, versus just me speaking into a camera and your ability to have access to that information. Look forward to seeing everyone on Monday evening and have an opportunity to work with you directly, though this week, of course, in the next few weeks, it'll be by a Skype phone call. Take care and look forward to speaking with you soon.